Alright, it's time for another game that most of you guys remember fondly. This is the original Bill Walsh College Football on the Sega Genesis. It was built on the Madden 93 engine, as you can clearly see. There's good and bad sides of that, of course. And there are also some aspects of this game that are really frustrating. Well, before we start talking about the stuff that I don't like about this game, let's take a look at some of the things that I really do like, and there are a lot of those. Well, you've got 24 different teams to choose from. Since this game is unlicensed, some of the school names are replaced by city names. So you've got Provo instead of BYU, you've got South Bend instead of Notre Dame, and you've got State College instead of Penn State. And honestly, that part is pretty creative. I mean, they weren't going to stick in 90-something teams, of course, because this is early 1993, but the selection of 24 teams that are in this game is actually pretty good. And just like Madden 1993, it's a mix of modern teams and historic teams. The all-time teams are all post-1978, so you've got teams like Atlanta 90. You've got teams like 1981 Clemson, and 1984 Florida, and of course 1988 Notre Dame listed as South Bend. And some of the choices are kind of odd. For example, the 1978 Alabama team instead of 1979. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure how the decisions were made on which teams to include and which teams not to include. I've been looking, I haven't found any information about that. Maybe somebody's written about it, I can't find it. But you know, that really doesn't matter that much. It's a pretty fun selection of 48 teams overall, and it really is a good expansion of the Madden concept. But the question is, how does the game play? Well, it plays just like one of the early Madden Genesis games. There's that famous passing window as usual. If you were a Madden fan back in 1993, you were used to this concept.
That one didn't have a chance.
Now, Bill Walsh includes an automatic catching feature which theoretically makes passing easier. Sometimes it works really well. But sometimes it just doesn't work at all. The most frustrating part about passing is that it's hard to figure out the trajectory of the ball. That plus you keep throwing to quadruple coverage because of that stupid window system. Now, it's easy for me to talk about how awful something like the passing system or the running system is compared to the more modern games. But what really matters here is how this game plays compared to other football games at its time. And, well, I'm not so sure that I'm totally sold on its systems. This is what the Madden 93 passing system looked like. And here's an example from Joe Walsh College Football. Both systems look really similar to me.
That's the way to catch a ball in a crowd.
And both share the same flaws. In particular, the controls in these games are really delayed. This is a delay that makes it really easy to get sacked, actually. You need to anticipate what you're going to do, and you need to do it before you want to do it, if that makes sense. And that's really more apparent in the running game than anywhere else. The running system in this game is pretty bad. There are certain plays that are guaranteed to lose you yardage. It's hard to tell when you're in the heat of the game, but the reason for this is the ridiculously bad blocking system. And of course, this was the same problem in Madden 93. You know, running here is just completely imbalanced. So if you have a running back who is really fast, who's faster than everybody else, then you can run the ball with him every single down. It's not going to matter. But if you've got a normal running back, well, good luck. Let's take a close look at why. Okay, we just got the ball in our opponent's 13-yard line after they went for it on 4th and long for some stupid reason. I want to call this play the halfback draw trap. Look closely at the play diagram. It's basically a run between the left tackle and the left guard. The left tackle will move to his left. We'll also have two guys from the right pull and come over to provide more blocking help at the point of attack. Now honestly, this running play is a pretty simple concept in theory at least, and it seems like a pretty conservative play to call in this situation. But just like with Madden 93, the game engine really has a hard time trying to handle this. Now when we line up, everything looks normal, right? As soon as I snap the ball, I realize that I've got 4 men on the line moving backwards. If you advance this one frame, you'll see that they've moved back about 3 yards. The two guys from the right go to the spot like they're supposed to, sure. However, the guard that was supposed to stay put and block is running to the right. Meanwhile, the ball carrier is out in no man's land with no blocking protection at all. The right side of the offense looks like it has no idea what it's supposed to do. And so, before my running back can even get back to the line, he's tackled by a guy coming around the end. And all of our blockers are standing around with nobody to block. That should sound familiar. These are the exact same complaints that I had with the running game in Madden 93. The idea is fine, I suppose, and some of the players are at least going where they're supposed to go, but there's no logic whatsoever as to what they do. And the same thing is true every single play. If you slow down, if you go back and look at the replay, or if you recorded it and look at it in slow motion. In fact, even when the computer runs plays, you see the computer linemen having the same problems. The computer is in the shotgun here, but it's going to run. But look at this, nobody on the line is actually blocking. And so I've got two defenders who have beaten their blockers already, both with an excellent shot at stopping the play. Now I won't complain about holding them to a 3-yard loss, but this is a pretty bad simulation of football. Now, all of you guys know by now which game I'm about to compare this to, but it has to be done. Okay, here I'm choosing this first play. This is a run around the right end. When I hand it off here, you can see that the men on the line are actually engaging. There are some screen flickering issues, as you can see, but my blockers are actually looking for guys to block and are blocking them. There's a defender down here that looks like he's going to blow the play up, but then my other back spots him and takes care of him. The result is this hole that is easy to spot and easy to run through. In the end, the defensive back stopped me for a short gain, but at least this feels like a running play. In contrast, running plays in Walsh College Football feel like mass chaos. And you also get frustrating passing plays like this, where there's a wide open guy downfield who is suddenly surrounded by 4 guys once the ball gets there. Now, normally I wouldn't go off on an older game like this, but there's one problem with this game. EA Sports came out with Mutant League Football just a few months before this game came out, and Mutant League Football was better. While it has its issues, it's a lot easier to run in this game. It's the same engine, but man, it feels a lot smoother. Part of this is because there were fewer players on the field. The overall speed is better and the experience is better, though there are still quite a few frustrations. So I just don't get it. I don't understand why they made like a really fast game that's a lot of fun to play, and then they went back to making a really slow game again. Now I know the Mutant League Football was only like 9-on-9 or something like that instead of 11-on-11, but I mean, come on, there must have been some way to work around that, because Tecmo did with Tecmo Super Bowl. Anyway, that's the biggest problem with the game, the lack of speed. It is sluggish and it takes forever to play a game. This is another one where it's like 40 minutes to complete a 20-minute game. I also found it a little bit too easy to return kicks. For example, during this punt return, two of the defenders ran into each other. Because of my punt returner's speed, I was able to easily reach the sideline and nobody could catch me after that. It's not unrealistic, I guess, but it feels a little bit too easy. And sometimes the game just feels like it's totally random, which drives me nuts. Take this pass, for example. It looks easy to catch, but it's really hard to figure out where I'm supposed to go to intercept it. In this play, where I figured I'd let the computer defend, and I wound up with a safety in the end zone looking the wrong way. It's common for plays that seem to be broken to turn into big gains for the offense while half the defense is going the wrong direction. And as you can see, diving for the tackle does absolutely nothing. Now, part of the problem here has to do with individual player ratings. And unfortunately, unlike Tecmo Super Bowl, I cannot find that information anywhere online. While this game does have a manual, it's mostly useless. There are some important explanations. For example, you have to hold down the button to throw a bullet pass, not tap it, which is the opposite of what I'd expect. But what you really need are these team cards that came with the original game. These give you a full scouting report of every team, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to find this information anywhere online. In fact, I'm not sure how many kids decided to hold on to all 48 cards after they bought the game. Now, I'm guessing that there's probably some kind of way within the game itself to do scouting. But seriously, I think it's kind of lame that this game required you to have, a whole bunch of cards that were like physical cards that isn't made clear, at least in the menus of the game itself. Now, I remember this era of gaming. This is back when it was common to have big box games, especially PC games. So you did have companies that would put all sorts of extras in for the person who actually bought the game. It was kind of an anti-piracy measure. But seriously, all these years later, it's really frustrating to go back and to realize you don't have the cards. But the most frustrating part of all is the play calling screen. Madden 93 still had the thing where you chose your personnel package, then your formation, and then your play. In Bill Walsh, all the plays are listed together in a jumbled mess. Now, there are supposed to be different formations here, which are indicated in theory by these letters on the left. The manual explains in very vague terms what these formations are and how they differ from each other. And as you play, you'll notice that there are a lot more option plays here than you first expected. Of course, that means you'll have to get used to actually pushing the C button to give the ball to your back when you're calling a running play or an option play. Now, I understand why, but it's not a mechanic that works all that well. The problem is that your linemen simply don't know how to block. That's what I said earlier. Now, an option system in a game like this could work well if you had enough time to make the option read. But in this game, you kind of have to make the decision right away because you have all the defenders crashing into you because your linemen cannot block. Now, I probably shouldn't be this negative. As you can see here, video games and computer entertainment absolutely loved this game. In particular, they cite the fact that your defensive secondary actually moves before the ball is snapped. That does happen in this game, yeah, but it doesn't seem to make any difference. They also cite the 4-player feature, which is something I haven't been able to test. And I'll be honest with you, that whole idea is really cool. But the funny thing about that stellar review is that they didn't mention anything about this game that was really different from Madden 93 other than different teams and some vague different college rules, like you only have 25 seconds in between plays. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter because for most of us it takes us like 5 seconds to snap the ball. The other thing that's funny about this is that they didn't mention Mutant League Football anywhere in the review. This is the same game that the exact same magazine had praised a couple months earlier. I mean, it was on the cover. That game was a lot smoother and a lot faster, made by the same team based on the same source code. I mean, this game, Bill Walsh College Football, isn't awful, sure, but it does have problems. The praise seems really exaggerated in hindsight. But then again, it might be that I'm not patient enough with this game. mean, my biggest complaint is that it feels like absolute chaos, especially when you try to run. Your best bet is long passes, but those often fall incomplete. It's still really laggy, and it doesn't have that really sharp and professional feel to it. Now, as you might already know, there are other versions of Bill Walsh College Football. There's a Sega CD version, there's a Super NES version, and then there's the famous 1995 version. But those versions are all totally different from this game. So I will look at each of those games individually, so stay tuned for that. Overall, I do think that this game is not that bad. It's pretty good. However, I do find Madden 93 and Madden Championship Edition to be superior. The play calling system, especially in this original Bill Walsh game, just isn't worth it. It's really bad. It's hard to find the play you want. And honestly, I really wish that Tecmo had come out with a college version of Tecmo Super Bowl instead. That would have been a much better game. Imagine this game, but you can actually complete passes, or your guys can actually block. Anyway, maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree, I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below, and we'll talk a little bit more later on about some of these other games.